Hey, everybody, welcome to the Hammerheads Show. This is Jack Hammer, and as you can see, I'm flying solo tonight. Rob, a little bit under the weather. So tonight, the Hammerhead Show, you get the Shoeless Show. Call me Shoeless Jack. You know, kind of like the guy from, what was it? The guy came out of the corn, Shoeless Joe Jackson. So this is, instead of Shoeless Joe Jackson, you got Shoeless Jack tonight. Hope Rob feels better. But wanted to come in and do the show, and it's going to be a little bit different tonight. It's going to be just myself. We're going to have fun, though. And what I would like to do is, you know, I didn't get to finish the after game show that I normally do last night. I wanted to get that done so I could go check out my kids' final Pop Warner game. I was able to catch the very end of it and got a sack, and so that was really cool to see. And now he's on to high school next year. He'll be playing high school football, so glad I got a chance to check that out. But no Rob here today, so you just got me. I've got some things that I'm going to go through, but also what I'd like to do is let's go through your questions. If you have anything specific you want me to address in terms of, normally on Monday when we do the show, it's Overreaction Monday. I didn't do Overreaction Monday today. I actually did my reactions to the game for my write-up for the Press Democrat. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because it really outlines everything that went into this game and into this loss and why the 49ers really are 3-4 right now. So I don't think there's any reactions to the game yesterday or even to the first 7 weeks that at this point are overreactions. So want to shout out everybody over in the comment section before, because there's a big group of you. We have E. Kim in the house, Savory Movie 197, Raphael 5629ers, who is a member of the Toolbox. We have, let's see who else we've got over there. We got a couple other guys in here. We got Alan Elizer, who is a member of the sneakerhead community. He's on board. Good to see you, Alan. And then we have Randall Riley, who says Hammer Time. Bryant Culp, who is another member of the Toolbox, says, "What up, faithful? Hit that like button, everyone, for Jack." Thank you very much, Bryant. Appreciate that. So feel free, please, to hit those. And when you do send those questions in, direct them directly to me. So put add Jack Hammer on there so that it pops up and I can see it, and then I will make sure that I get to those as we go through the show. So it's a little bit different tonight for sure, but I think it'll be a fun one. We also have Lucas Pesci, another member of the Toolbox, comes to us from Austria, says, "Good evening, Jack." Good to see you too, Lucas. So let's just get into this one a little bit. Let me get my thoughts overall, because I have 5, maybe 6, 7 reasons that the 49ers are under 500 right now, and it's interesting because you look back to before training camp, and the 49ers roster was considered by many to be among the most talented in the league. If I remember that correctly, what it was the 49ers minus the quarterback position have the best roster in the league, or one of the top 3, 4, 5. I mean, at the top. Hasn't translated, though, onto the field. In some ways, it's funny because Jimmy Garoppolo has been the quarterback, and that was the transition from Garoppolo to Trey Lance was one of the reasons why people were putting it that way, based on everything but the quarterback. The 49ers defenses, or 49ers team, is fantastic. Hasn't played out well, and here's my first one. I think the 49ers defense is overrated. And I understand when you hear me say that the 49ers defense is overrated, I understand the reaction that gets, and people think of that probably as an overreaction. But let me go through and let me explain. The 49ers, when you look back at the beginning of the season, after 4 weeks, we were talking about the 49ers defense in the same vein as the 85 Chicago Bears, the 2019 49ers defense. I was talking about the 1994 49ers defense and how much fun this group was to watch. But what we've really started to understand is that the first 5 weeks of the season were a bit of a mirage because the 49ers faced teams that either had a really bad quarterback, and you go through the list of the teams that they faced over that time, either a really bad quarterback or a really bad offensive line. So, the really bad offensive line, that one goes to Matthew Stafford. The other 4 quarterbacks, not too good. And it's been a completely different story these last 2 weeks. Atlanta, Marcus Mariota, not going to normally light the world on fire, but Atlanta's offense has an identity. They stuck to it, and they really pushed the 49ers around. And then Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And in the last 2 weeks, the 49ers defense has given up 63 points, and they have allowed first downs on 15 of 23 third down opportunities to their opponents. Atlanta and Kansas City, 15 of 23. That's 63%, I believe, was the number. Prior to that time, it was around 31. So they were doing really good until they faced a couple of opponents that were worthy. And then, on Sunday against the Chiefs, I felt like D'Amico Ryans was completely overmatched by Andy Reid. Saw it really right off the bat. Not on the first possession. That one was okay. Get the interception on the third play of the game. But it was just the next third down, and you see Travis Kelce motion from outside into a bunch, and 49ers defensive backs try to adjust, don't do a good job of it, and Kelce gets wide open. Easy little pitch and catch from Mahomes to Kelce, who goes 23 yards. From that point, it was just downhill for the 49ers the rest of the way. You look at the game yesterday. The 49ers defense faced 58 snaps against the Chiefs. They gave up 529 yards, 42 points, 20 plays of 10 or more yards, and an average of 9.1 yards per play. Not only that, the piece for me that's bigger than just the overall numbers is we've now seen the 49ers defense falter in high leverage situations throughout the season. If you really want to take a step back and look at it, we saw them put up some really good numbers, but we also saw them go out against Chicago and allow touchdowns on 3 straight possessions. And we, think about that for a second. The Chicago Bears, Justin Fields, got the ball and scored a touchdown 3 straight times to come back and take that. It was a really good first half, but when the ball started rolling downhill wrong on them, they couldn't make a stop. You go to week 3, and they played lights out. But you got to remember, they had a 5-point lead. So the only way Denver was going to beat them is to score a touchdown. Russell Wilson drove the Broncos down the field, converted all 3 third down attempts. They get the touchdown and win. After last week in Atlanta, you see the 49ers fall behind 14-0. The offense comes back. In part, they get held by a stop by the defense, but the offense is able to come back and tie the game midway through the second quarter. But then you see that Falcons get the ball, drive right down the field. They have early on in that possession, you have 3rd and 12. Marcus Mariota breaks contain up the middle, scrambles for 15 yards. From that point on, the defense can't make a stop. Atlanta scores a touchdown just before halftime. Falcons come out after half, get the ball again, go right down the field, and now they're up 14. So, when you look at this, while it's true the 49ers defense is dealing with injuries, the Niners defense saw Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't the guys, they went after the veterans. It was Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward made the start at nickel. Makes sense that you'd play him there a little bit. Chiefs went right after him. He was targeted 6 times. He gave up 6 completions and a touchdown. Charvarius Ward, everybody's excited that he was going to make the start. He allowed 6. He was targeted 6 times. He gave up 6 receptions, including a 57-yard bomb over the top of his head when he got just completely burnt like a toast to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So the second week in a row, you've seen the 49ers offense, defensive pass rush was supposed to be so good, become almost non-existent. Patrick Mahomes was hit 3 times yesterday. Nick Bosa came with the only sack. That's 2 weeks in a row the 49ers defense has only come up with 1 sack. And they haven't really gotten to the quarterback very much. So it's been a rough start for sure for the 49ers. And look at that. We got a new member of the toolbox, Randall Riley. Thank you very much, Randall. Great to see you on here. So, I look at this and I've thought this a little bit, but this defense right now is overrated. I know they're dealing with some injuries. Everybody's dealing with injuries in the NFL right now. The team the 49ers just faced, the Chiefs, have one of their starting defensive backs was off the field yesterday. Everybody's dealing with it. And Jimmy Ward and Charvarius Ward, you're not going to hear much about Jimmy Ward, though. Jimmy Ward is well-liked, so you're not going to hear a whole lot about that. He's one of the well-liked 49ers amongst the 49er content creator community, so you're not going to hear anything about Jimmy Ward. Charvarius Ward struggled. He'd been okay. I want to go back and take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the Charvarius board stuff because I know against Chicago, there was a play that was a bust in zone coverage that I think was on him. And during the time when it started to go wrong for the Flyers defense and stuff. So, I don't want to speak on too much that I don't know, but I will say that I think the Flyers defense is overrated. Randall asks or says, your thoughts on the loss of Armstead? It seems like last season before he was moved to the interior, we struggled with run defense. And this year with him out, we are struggling again. I agree. I do think that has a little bit to do with it. We didn't see it pop up against the Rams. I know he played the first half of the Rams game. We didn't see it pop up in the second half of the Rams game because the Rams just don't run the ball well. They were able to make it through Carolina because Carolina is just so bad. But it's definitely been, I think, a little bit of an issue the last 2 weeks. It wasn't. Again, they give up 529 yards yesterday to the Chiefs. Mahomes was over 400 yards throwing, I believe. So there's a lot of things that went into it, and I like what you're saying there though, because it's not incorrect. Eric Armstead is showing that he's a bigger piece of it. There was a lot of folks, including myself, who were talking up Kevin Givens and his role with this team and how good he was playing. But Kevin Givens, the more he plays, is showing why he was a backup and a role player. Let's see what else we got. We got KW2421. Want to come to this one? He says, could getting Christian McCaffrey be the shot in the arm the offense has needed this season? I'm going to answer that one right now with a little bit longer of an answer. And that really goes with what my second point was as far as my reaction to the game yesterday. Kyle Shanahan needs to stop using Deebo Samuel out of the backfield. So yes, the answer to your question is Christian McCaffrey could be a shot in the arm for the 49ers. I look at this and I say, as far as offense was struggling last season, you look back and you understand to get to where Deebo Samuel, how he got into the backfield. All right. I am sorry about that, guys. Yes, Eric is right. Jimmy G must have hacked into my account before I could say anything bad about him. You're right. That's probably the problem there. I think it's Jimmy. I blame that's I should just join everybody else and just say, hey, this it's all Jimmy's fault. So it's I apologize. I'm not sure what happened there. Uh, I just got done with a whole tangent on the answer to KW 2421's question. So let me get back to it. I apologize once again. So let me go back. Let me pull it up. And his question was, could Christian McCaffrey be the shot in the arm the Flyers offense has needed? And the answer to that was, yeah, it is. And the reason that I say that that's the case is because you go and you look at what the 49ers have done. It really goes back to the second thing that I wanted to talk about the game. And I mentioned it during the game on Twitter and in the live blog as well. Kyle Shanahan needs to stop using Deebo Samuel the backfield. So that's where Christian McCaffrey comes in. You go back to last season, Flyers offense struggling. They weren't getting explosive plays out of the run game. They were struggling in the pass game a little bit. And Kyle Shanahan even talked about how they just weren't getting the explosive plays in the offense to get the scores that they needed. And so they made the switch up in week 10 against the Rams with Samuel moving to the backfield more often. He was electrifying, gave the Flyers that piece that they were missing. This offseason, though, opposing defenses have figured it out. They're not caught off guard anymore. When Samuel's in the backfield, it's really easy. You know that the ball's either going to the edges or it's going to be a pass. It's not going between the tackles. And so that allows defenses to play a little bit differently. And they now need, I think it's time that the addition of Christian McCaffrey gives you a guy that does all the things that Deebo Samuel does in the run game, but is better at it in between the tackles. He's going to be a good player in the passing game on screens and those types of things, maybe even some other routes. And it's time for Deebo Samuel to go back to being a receiver again. That doesn't mean that he's not going to get opportunities to run the ball occasionally, but those are going to come off the end arounds of jet sweeps like we saw prior to the second half of last season. Go back to 2019, go back to 2020. He was really a big part of the Flyers offense in 2019 towards the end of the season and in the playoffs and those types of things. So Deebo Samuel's still going to be a big piece. I just think you need to change it up. And McCaffrey, I think, is, I talked about that when the trade went down. I'm a big believer in this trade. I really like what happened there with that move. I think it's a positive for the 49ers, and I think it's going to work out. But there's a lot of other things that are going on around this team that are kind of talking about this. So let's see what else we've got. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey, I think it's going to work out. Just you got to give it a little bit. I don't think yesterday's performance needs to even. You saw him in the first half, kind of what he can do. In the second half, they got away from him a little bit. But I want to see this offense commit to the run. You look at the Flyers' first two possessions of the game, they score a touchdown after the interception. They have a nice drive for a field goal on their first one. And when you look at what happened there, the 49ers ran the ball 5 times on the first 9 plays. The second possession, 2 runs, 2 passes. So after the first 2 possessions, the Flyers are up 10-0. They've run the ball more than they've passed. Kansas City scores a touchdown, and the 49ers run game goes completely out the window. We don't see it again. And so we'll see where this goes forward. That's on Kyle Shanahan, the play calling piece there. But McCaffrey, yes, I think he's going to be a shot in the arm for the Flyers offense. Let's see what else we have. We've got Here we go. We got a super chat from James Foster. Thanks, James. I think I really appreciate it. He says, thoughts on Fred Warner. He's been good, not great since getting paid. Doesn't make big plays at all nowadays. There's something to that. I don't think it's necessarily getting paid. I felt like Fred Warner had a tough start to the year last year. Fred Warner, his success in run defense is really predicated on what's happening in front of him. So we talked a little bit earlier. There was the question about Eric Armstead and his absence, and the 49ers being able to get taken advantage of in the run game a little bit more. I think that's partly to do with it. But also the other thing when you look at the game yesterday, really quick before I get back to your question, James, the run game wasn't necessarily just up the middle. It was jet sweeps. It was outside runs, and there were times they got to the edge and there was nobody there. And I'm going to take a look at the film a little bit closer, but kind of listening to a couple of people talk about it that are around the team, and then understanding what I know about the jet sweep from my past. I think that the way that Andy Reid's running it, from what I've understood and what I heard, is it's a lot different than what the 49ers are doing. It's the way to do it. Basically, what they were doing is on those jet sweeps, they're not even blocking Nick Bosa. They're letting Nick Bosa run free, because the guy that would normally be responsible for blocking Nick Bosa is working his way up the field. And that's why you didn't see Fred Warner get to the edge. You didn't see the linebackers getting to the edge. You didn't get the safeties getting there, because those offensive linemen are working to the second level. Let's think about it for a second. If you've got Mecole Hardman running at his full speed down the line of scrimmage, there's no way that Nick Bosa is going to get off the line to that point where Hardman is and make the tackle. There just isn't. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go back and check it out. But that's one of the things I heard. But it's in terms of Fred Warner and his struggles. I was very unimpressed with Fred Warner's press conference yesterday. Had no answers. Everything was very Mike Singletary-like. I go back and look at the film. Got to go back and look at the film. Hit on a couple of the key things that you football players will say after they get beat. But the 49ers defense overall hasn't been playing well. And Fred Warner, I think he's been okay, but there's a reason he wasn't an All-Pro last year. His tackle numbers were better than the year before, but it's the interceptions and the big plays just haven't been there for him. Thank you very much for the super chat, James. I appreciate it. Tommy Huxley, how you doing? He says McVay was a run first team. What happened? Well, what happened is they lost their offensive lineman. They didn't have they were spending big money and draft picks on all the guys around. They weren't spending that on their interior offensive line, and the interior guys that they were bringing in weren't very good. And that's been the biggest problem for the Rams, is their offensive line can't move people. So I think that's the biggest thing down in Los Angeles, is that offensive line just doesn't get any movement. They're not very good in pass protection. And you're really seeing, it's funny because all of the discussion about the 49ers was that it was going to be the offensive line that was going to be their undoing. But that's not the case. The 49ers offensive line has actually been playing at a decent level. Some penalty issues with them. But in terms of blocking and hits on the quarterbacks, for the most part, they've been pretty good. They struggled a little bit yesterday with some blitz pickups. Some of that's on Jimmy Garoppolo too, because when you got 8 guys coming and there's only 5 blocking, or excuse me, no, I shouldn't say 8. What was it? 7. They brought 7 on the interception, and the 49ers had 5 in routes, and Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw it to the guy that was uncovered. But that's for another story. But yeah, I just think that you're not getting down in LA. They don't have the linemen to get it done. They're not getting any push on the up front and all those kind of things. Eric Dane, are there any teams in the league that would have a chance of making the playoffs if they lost their starting quarterback in week 2? Well, when did Mac Jones go down? I don't remember when Mac Jones went down, but the New England Patriots figured it out. I think they're 3-3 going into tonight's game. I don't know what's happening with that one, but New England's kind of been okay. They've been able to hang around. James says Ian Sharp or Aziz is a big loss, especially with Greenlaw out. It is. Let me go to Lucas. He's asking a question. Lucas, Toolbox member, says, what do you think about D'Amico's blitzes? He blitzes a lot more than last year, but his blitzes aren't getting home quickly. Haven't seen him create a free rusher at the quarterback like Saleh did. There's been times when it's worked, but it didn't work yesterday. And part of it was you got a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes who's able to get the ball out of his hands quick. The Chiefs did take some shots down the field, but some of their bigger plays early on in that game were just easy little, like the throw to Like, for example, the throw that I mentioned at the beginning of the show to Travis Kelce, that's just an easy beater, man coverage beater, get the ball, turn, throw it on the out. The couple plays later, you see him get out of the pocket, roll to his left, and drill it in. They kept the 49ers completely off balance yesterday, and they did send some blitzes, couldn't get home, so you're right on that. I think the D'Amico Ryans, talked about the 49ers defense being overrated. I said that. I think D'Amico Ryans, 49ers talk a lot about, you hear a lot of talk around the 49ers about Kyle Shanahan being predictable. D'Amico Ryans is just as predictable. He's way more predictable, really. When you're in third down, you know what you're getting with this guy. You know you're going to get man coverage. You know it's going to be tight, and they're going to wait, and they're going to try to press you. And you saw Andy Reid know exactly what to do. It was 3rd and 1, 3rd inches. He knew exactly what was coming. That's why he motioned Kelce the way that he did. And the 49ers have the bust that the 49ers had yesterday on the play to Kelce. The first thing that I thought of was the touchdown in Chicago. They gave the Bears the lead. Same type of thing. Wasn't into a bunch, but it was motion from outside, from an outside position to the inside, which requires the 49ers defense to then change who's got who. They weren't able to make those changes. Wide open down the field in the end zone for a touchdown. So a lot of issues going on there. I'm not sure exactly how they fix it, but you're on to something there, Lucas. They're not getting home on those blitzes quite as often as they should. Randall says, without that D-line push, the back end can't play that aggressive like they have been doing since the start of the season. Injuries have decimated the D-line, and adjustments haven't been made on the back end. This is a good one. It was actually pointed out by Patrick Mahomes after the game. Mentioned this, and he mentioned how after the interception, he was looking at the tablet. He noticed the safeties, how close the safeties were playing. He noticed how hard Tayshaun Gibson was driving on that in route, and he went to his wide receivers and said, "These guys are really pressing you. Just keep running. We're gonna beat them. We're gonna get behind them." Sure enough, that's what they did. The 49ers didn't adjust. They kept coming up, playing tight, and the Chiefs just kept running by them. Imagine that. You're facing a team in Kansas City that is has really good skill position players, a really good quarterback, and I understand wanting to be aggressive, but at some point when they're going down the field on you 6 times in 8 possessions for touchdowns, you need to make an adjustment, and there wasn't one yesterday. All right, let's go. Those were a lot of the earlier ones. I'm sorry. Let me fast forward here. Let me get to the other topic that I had for tonight, and it goes back to earlier on. We talked about the some of these plays, and it's the 49ers playmakers. They need to step up. There was some talk after the game. You had Brandon Ayuk talking about how these guys got to get the ball. You had George Kittle talking about how, they've got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey and Justin Wilson and all these playmakers. This offense has only scored 19 points. And when you're not scoring points, the blame's going to go on the quarterback. I'm not going to defend Jimmy Garoppolo. What I'm going to say is we all know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. At best, he's average, maybe a little above average. Doesn't throw the ball downfield well. Not very accurate on the outside of the numbers. He can do those things, but he's not consistent at it. So you know what you're getting. The quarterback holds this offense back at times. That's nothing that we haven't heard. So to keep coming on here and saying the same thing over and over and over again, as I see on Twitter, that doesn't make sense. At some point, you need to take a look at the guys who are supposed to be making the plays, the playmakers. Well, let's take a look at George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jeff Wilson Jr., John Jennings. We're not going to worry about Christian McCaffrey. He's been here for one game. The 49ers lead the NFL in drop passes. Not only do they lead the league in drop passes, They have a rate of 8.4% of their targets dropped. The next closest is at 7.4%. That's not even close. I know the numbers only 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's not really close. The 49ers don't throw the ball a lot. So to have 19 drop passes, which is tied for the most in the league, despite not throwing the ball a lot, 8.4, you are the worst in terms of holding on to the football. So George Kittle, catch the ball. Stop talking. You know, the other thing that I hear a lot is, what about George Kittle going up and making the big catch? Deebo Samuel going up and making the big catch? Yes, their 49ers are going to have they're going to have a couple positive plays each game. That's awesome. But the thing is, those positive results are being offset by drops, because 19 drops in 7 games is just under 3 a game. So if you make a couple really spectacular plays, but you're having a couple, you're offsetting each other. And again, it's the consistency. We understand that Jimmy Garoppolo, he's middle of the road, but you can't get by if you're not holding the football. And then you look at the game yesterday against Kansas City, and I keep hearing about how the 49ers offense can't keep up with Kansas City. Every time you kick a field goal, it's a loss. And the underlying reasoning for that is a shot at Jimmy Garoppolo or a shot at the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, for his play calling. Here's the thing, though. Opening possession, 3rd and 4 in the red zone, Brandon drops a slant. Second half, 3rd and 7, Jimmy Garoppolo hits George Kittle in the arm, incompletion. 2 field goals, 2 balls that hit the playmakers in the hands. So that's the reason why I'm putting the quotation marks on the playmakers. I keep hearing about how good the 49ers playmakers are. Remember this. Last in the league in drop passes. Would they be better with Trey Lance? We don't know. But what we do know is that in the 4 starts that Trey Lance had in the 3 full games that he played, with those same playmakers that everybody's talking about, the 49ers offense scored 10, 23, and 10. And they kicked a field goal on the opening possession of the game against the Seahawks. So I don't know. We can blame it on Jimmy Garoppolo if we want. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo is mediocre. He is a C+ level quarterback. Maybe C. He's right in that range, like a slight C+. So we know, like Randall says, who's now a member of the Toolbox, we know Jimmy. We know his limitations. And these other guys need to catch the damn ball or not make penalties and all these other kinds of things. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. Jimmy Garoppolo catches it. I understand, because he is he's a lightning rod. I'm not sure which one this one you're referring to, KW2421. Throwing the ball up on 3rd down was extremely stupid move by Jimmy. Oh, I think you're talking about the interception. And you're right. It was a stupid move by Jimmy Garoppolo. He had Jeff Wilson Jr. wide open. Jeff Wilson Jr. is on there. He's got, again, the Chiefs rush 7. There's 4 guys in coverage. There's 5 people running routes for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't go to his hot route, which is Jeff Wilson Jr. Would have been a completion, probably a touchdown, based on the way that it looked and what was in front of Wilson when you watch it on film, because there's nothing there. Instead, he backpedals and he's throwing from about the 20-yard line, and it's just an air ball that he said was going to George Kittle that he threw about 5 yards short and is picked off. So, yes, it's a criminally stupid move by Jimmy Garoppolo. Should have been a touchdown. The only thing I'm going to say real quick about that is, because I've seen a lot of people talk about that, let's just play this out for a minute. Jimmy Garoppolo hits Jeff Wilson Jr. It's a touchdown, and there's 1 minute and 30 seconds to go in the first half. How do we know that the Chiefs weren't going to drive down 73 yards and score a field goal or a touchdown because they drove the ball 73 yards. Actually, they drove the ball 94 yards in a minute and 22 seconds and scored a touchdown. The only reason they didn't get points was because their touchdown got called back for a penalty and then they missed the field goal. So both sides missed opportunities there. So to say that, if you want to say that Garoppolo's mistake was bad, it is. But it's not the killer, I think, that people want to make it out to be, because we don't know how the Chiefs would have responded. Actually, we do, because we saw them drive down the field. And based off of the 49ers kickoff coverage, they wouldn't have had to go 73 yards, or they wouldn't have had to go more than 73 yards, most likely. And that brings me up to, well, that's okay. One last one real quick on Jimmy Garoppolo. Andrew Rott says, why have Jimmy's biggest mistakes been in the end zone this year? Can he not play in tight coverage? I think you might be talking about the sacks on that. I'm not sure. But Garoppolo has a history of making stupid throws around the red zone too. Take yourself back to last year in Tennessee. Nice drive, get down there, interception to George Kittle. So for sure. And then the other part of that, though, is there's nothing special about the 49ers special teams. Nothing at all. And the 49ers struggled on special teams the last couple of years. So they went into this offseason improving special teams a priority. San Francisco let Richard Hightower, their special teams coordinator, go, replaced them with Brian Schneider. In free agency, the 49ers' biggest signings were Oren Burks, George Odom, and Raymond McLeod. Each of those came to San Francisco with a focus on elevating the special teams units. To this point, though, the moves have been a bust. The 49ers kickoff unit was dreadful the last 3 weeks. They've allowed 3 returns of more than 45 yards. In fact, yesterday, it was a 14-13 game at halftime, so this was a close game. Kansas City gets the ball to start the second half. They get a 40-yard kickoff return, and then they get a 15-yard personal foul on top of that. 3 plays, 34 yards later, Chiefs have a 21-13 lead. That was the only short field the Chiefs had the whole day, and it was because of a kickoff failure. The kickoff return hasn't been any better. Raymond McLeod's handled all 13 kickoff returns for the 49ers this year. He was one of the big acquisitions. His average of 17.6 yards per return is actually a yard less than what the 49ers managed a year ago. So you made the move to pick up McLeod. You're getting less yardage in returns. You're getting drops in the passing game. This isn't a good one. And then on top of that, yesterday in the third quarter, you get a kickoff, and I believe McLeod brings it out of the end zone, and Ty Davis gets called for holding. So now the 49ers offense is back on its own 5. 3 plays later, Garoppolo gets sacked, and it's a safety. And it doesn't even stop there with this special teams unit. 2 field goal attempts by Robbie Gould have been blocked this season, 1 being returned for a touchdown. Remember last year up in Seattle when the Seahawks scored a touchdown on a fake punt? Well, the only points that they scored in the game at Levi's was on a blocked field goal that they took the other way. So, again, 49ers special teams has not been good. And then last but not least, penalties. San Francisco has been called for 48 penalties this season, tied for 5th most in the NFL. So you kind of look back at everything that I've talked about. Why are the 49ers under 500 right now? They struggle to get off the field on defense. They drop a lot of passes. They aren't good on special teams. And they commit a high number of turnovers and penalties. So let's just blame it all on Jimmy Garoppolo, because that's a lot easier than actually talking about parts of the team that aren't playing well. That's my take on it. That's where I think the 49ers are right now. And I think that's the reason why they are 3-4. Defense isn't playing well. Offense isn't playing well. Special teams isn't playing well. Offense is, like I said, we already know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. The 49ers right now are averaging just over 20 points a game. But that's when you include the defensive touchdowns. They're allowing now, after yesterday's game, after these last 2 weeks, they're allowing 19 points. So their net, which was pretty, they were one of the best net teams in net points scored heading into the last couple of weeks, has really fallen off. Hey, check that out. We got Gabe. Thank you for that huge super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, love your show, Jack. The Flyers are undisciplined, commit stupid penalties every week. It seems the quarterback is average, injuries all over the place, special teams suck, which is true. Defense is overrated. Does this team miss the playoffs? Yeah. As they're playing right now, yes. If they don't turn things around, this team will absolutely miss the playoffs. The good news for the Flyers, if you really want to look at a positive, I think they play one on their record on their ahead of them. They're 3-4 in their next 10 games. I think right now, the way that it shakes out, there is one team with a winning record that they're playing against. The Rams are 3 at 500. So that's not too good. This week in Los Angeles against the Rams is huge. You get this win, you get to 4-4, and you have 2 games against Arizona in front of you. You'll be 3-3 in your division, but you got to win the non-division games. The Chiefs, everybody in the NFC that the Flyers have to play looks beatable. It's the Chargers and the Raiders that scare you a little bit just because they're in the AFC, and I think the AFC is a little bit better. But the Chargers are kind of struggling. We saw them get beat yesterday. You're seeing the Chargers defense without Joey Bosa and some of the other issues that they're having down there. So you never know what happens with the Raiders. Does the team miss the playoffs? I think it's a higher likelihood than we think. I said before the season that if they were at 3-3 halfway at the after the first 6 weeks, they were in trouble. This is why, and we'll see. I hope they can turn it around because it's a lot more fun talking about. I know I'm going to say this. I get a lot more views. I get a lot more interaction when the team's losing, but so that's good for me from a view standpoint and a click standpoint on my articles. But it's a lot more fun to talk about a team and cover a team that's winning because I'm not a pessimistic person by nature. I much prefer to be positive and look at the good things that are happening. But at the same time, you can't come into and do what I do and just try to paint a rosy picture all the time when it just isn't there. So I really appreciate, Gabe, the super chat. Thank you very much. And right now I would say no on the playoffs, but we'll see where it goes from there. This is an interesting one, KW2421. You've heard of the butterfly effect, right, Jack? Flyers' woes are being caused by the Jimmy G effect. I think there might be something to this in terms of that's way bigger than the play on the field. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't supposed to be here. Everything was about Jimmy Garoppolo being gone. I think the fact that he got brought back, the timing that all took place, and just kind of the whole way that might have something to do with it as well. And that's definitely something that's I'll have to keep an eye on and try to really vet it out a little bit in terms of how I can present that, because I think there is definitely something to this. Lester, San Jose, member of the Toolbox, says, do you think Burford Brunskill rotation will keep going, or will they need to decide on one person at right guard? I think it's always best to make decisions like this. I don't like on the offensive side of the ball, I don't like rotations. I don't like rotations other than, obviously at the receiver and running back positions, you're going to make some rotations. But along the offensive line, I don't like rotations. I want those guys to be set. I want those guys to all be working together all the time. Your offensive linemen need to have everything they do be in unison. So the more time they play together as a group, the better it is. And so I'd like to see them make a decision on what they're going to do there. I think that's right. I think Randall says Dolphins is about the only winning team they play. The Dolphins are one of them. I think the Chargers are at 4-3 now. So I think those might be the only two over 500 I don't think there's anybody in the NFC that's over 500. I don't think the Cardinals are over 500. I don't have to go back and look at that number again. I could be completely wrong. Who is the division winner in the West, Jack? I think if the 49ers can handle their business in the NFC, steal one of these games in the AFC, maybe two of them, I think the 49ers can be right there. I think it's really going to come down to a couple of big games. The big games are going to be in Seattle on the 15th of December. I think that's going to be a major decider in who wins the West. If the 49ers can kind of figure this thing out, it's going to be December 15th in Seattle, and the final week of the season at Levi Stadium when Arizona comes. I think those are the games that are going to decide who wins the NFC West. I like the Rams from the standpoint of their quarterback. I think they have the best quarterback situation, but their offensive line stinks, and that shoots them in the foot. So the division winner, I think, is going to. I think Seattle has a really good chance of getting this. The 49ers let go some wins that they should have had, and now they're behind Seattle, even though I think the 49ers are a better team overall. They're not playing like a better team. So, yes, I'm thinking that it's going to be the Seahawks at this point. And hopefully I'm wrong, and you guys can all come in here and tell me that I was full of horse bucky. And then, yes, I know the Cardinals aren't good on paper. I think the Cardinals are – here's what's interesting. The Cardinals are going to be an interesting team to watch. They didn't have DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks. They got him back last week, or this in week 7. They had a pretty good game. So let's see how Arizona is now that DeAndre Hopkins is back. I think that could be a little bit of a game changer for them. Let's see. Lucas says, do you think they activate Jason Verrett this week? And have you heard anything about Kalia Davis? Maybe he could help against the run. Kalia Davis is going to be on the shelf this year. He had that knee injury last year. I don't think he's in their plans at all. Jason Verrett, we're going to know by the time they hit the practice field on Wednesday. That's the deadline for Verrett's activation. Kyle Shanahan today was asked about that, and he said that Verrett had some more reps last week than the week before. Listening to him talk, it was pretty monotone, and it didn't sound like he was. I don't know if he was just trying to play that as straight as he could. But Jason Verrett is somebody that 49ers would be really helpful to get Jason Verrett back, because they need another guy in the secondary to help them out. Do I think they're going to activate him? I don't know. If I was betting on this one, I would say yes, that Jason Verrett gets activated this week. Yeah, Brock Purdy, you're not going to start. Here's the thing about Brock Purdy. I love watching Brock Purdy throw the football in practice. It's clear that he has a stronger arm than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's clear that Brock Purdy moves better than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's also clear that Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy will not start a game for the 49ers unless Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt or the 49ers are knocked out of the playoff race. That's when Brock Purdy will start, not before then. And KW2421 said that same thing. Raphael 5629er says, like and subscribe, everyone. Yes, please do. The Kivets, I don't have an update on that one. Let's see what else we got real quick. I'm way behind on the comments section. I start talking. Jay Aguayo over here, another super chat, says 49ers played a healthy team with great coach and a quarterback. They did, absolutely. And it was pretty good for sure. I appreciate the super chat, but yeah, they definitely played a healthy team, great coach, great QB that showed up in the game, and felt like that was going to be a tough one for the 49ers to win anyway. That's why I had it marked down as a loss. That's why I predicted that they lose the game. I just didn't expect to see them get run out of the building the way that they did. Let's see real quick. Moonman, 49ers defense overrated, not as good as people think. Absolutely. That's what I talked about at the beginning of the show. They've given up 63 points the last two games, given up 63% on third down conversions in the last couple of games. Don't think so. Let's see what else we got. The Jedi says that Jason Verrett's not coming back. We'll see. Shout out to Miguel Vallejos from he wanted a shout out. So there you go, Miguel. Good to have you on board. And let's see what else we got. All right. Let's see if they're just real quick, and then we'll wrap this thing up. I apologize also for the channel going down earlier. Thank you all so much for keeping on with me. And this was a fun one, a little bit different. I really hope, as I said, the Hammerhead Show, Jack going solo. I'm shoeless Jack tonight, but getting a little chilly because I don't have my shoe. But it was a good one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And let me see really quick. I'm just trying to make sure before I click out of here. Don't want to miss anybody saying anything fun. Which injuries do you think have hurt the most? Funny enough, I think it could be Armstead. I agree. It could be the Armstead injury. Maybe it was even the Trey Lance injury. Who knows? Close it out with Randall saying, beat the Rams in your 3-0 in the division at 500. Seahawks lose to the Giants. Voila. We are back in first place. Look at that, baby. Randall, like you're thinking, that's a good one. That's the fandom right there that the 49ers need. That's the kind of energy that kind of picks everybody else up. We'll see what happens. 49ers have owned the Rams in the regular season, so that's not out of the realm of possibilities. Seahawks and Giants, that's going to be an interesting game. All that stuff could happen. So we'll see how it works out. I want to say real quick, I'm gonna bounce, but I want to say thanks to everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys sticking by with the technical difficulties earlier. Just had my internet had an issue, but got that resolved. If you guys can do me a favor before you head out, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. And really, the biggest thing is those likes and the subscriptions. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the little bell notification. And make sure you hit the like button and comment as well. So thanks so much. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.